Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. It's National Random Acts of Poetry Day, Tony. What you got for us?
Roses are red, violets are blue. Why is it your Cubs can never score 2?
Because sometimes they don't score 0. They don't score 1. They stop. They just stop. They don't even get to 1. Last night, 1, but other nights, 0.
It was so painful for me last night to realize you were right.
Of course I'm right.
You know, you were completely right. 13
About the
innings.
Cubs,
13
every game,
innings.
Tony.
Stop.
Better than
Stop.
those analytics dopes.
Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, are Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy beefing? Are the A's smart to bullpen their way through the wild card game? And is baseball ready to ditch its unwritten rules? But we begin today with Michael Wilbon's Pyrrhic victory. He said the Cubs wouldn't score more than 1 run and they would lose to Colorado, which is exactly what happened. And now the team he has rooted for his whole life is done, having lost 2 consecutive 1 games at home. Wilbon, as you survey the wreckage of your team, do the Cubs have major problems or just minor ones?
I think there's several minor ones, and I'll start with the 40-game suspension that Major League Baseball has doled out to Addison Russell, starting shortstop, all-star at least, I guess, 1 time for domestic abuse. He will miss the first 40 games. Self-explanatory. I think they'll try to trade him nonetheless. But, Tony, the problems we have involve very specific people. You, Darvish, who didn't post. I mean, he spent like $140 million. He's not there, $120 million. Brandon Morrow, the Dodgers closer that we had, was great in the first third, injured, wasn't there. So we were missing him. Chris Bryant missed 61 games. With those guys out, those are 3 of your 7 most important players on the team. We still won 94 games. Now, I'll say this. Bryce Harper is now a necessity. I think you can fix these things. I don't know what you do financially. Theo is brilliant at this. But the guys that were injured have to play. They will. And then Bryce Harper needs to be on the Cubs' radar. But I think these are minor things, relatively speaking.
So you mentioned Bryce Harper because you come at me because
I'm not coming at you.
Well, I'm a Nats fan.
I'm coming at my team. They need a guy who can take a base on balls every now and then.
I'm going to take Bryce Harper out of this mix, and I'm still going to say that if I look at your team, the Cubs, and my team, the Nats, I prefer your players, with the exception of Scherzer, and Soto and Robles and Turner and Anthony Rendon.
That's 5 guys.
Here are people that you put up. This is the thing that amazes me.
Why
that you don't score. You have Rizzo, you have Bryant, you have Schwarber, you have Baez, you have Contreras, you have Zobrist. I don't know how it's possible that this happened.
Part of it. Tony, they played like 51 games in 53 days because of rainouts and snowouts. And I told you in August, this is going to kill this team. They never recovered. They were leading the National League in runs scored. They wound up finishing 4th, which sounds okay. But, Tony, part of it is the approach to hitting.
Until the last day.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do about hitting. Tony, they have a terrible approach. I know they're 5th in walks, but they don't seem to value getting on base and moving runners. And I think that's analytics knuckleheads.
The problem with the Nats
to that
became a problem for the Cubs this year, and that is relief pitching. You can't go anywhere without relief pitching. You can dress.
Our closer was hurt.
You can dress your entire team in pajamas for a road trip, but if you don't have relief pitching, you're not winning.
Did you hear me mention Brandon Morrow at the top of the segment?
I understand that. Well,
we got to have
this happens.
It does. So you're saying they got no problems?
I'm saying the problems are minor. I'm saying they led the league in wins. They are minor problems.
I said minor, so we agree. Why are we shouting?
That's what we do on this show.
I know, but you don't get to be angry today. I get to be angry. I'm tired of this. Let's go to the team that actually had the wherewithal to score a 2nd run last night. The Rockies, with their pitching staff in tatters, drive an hour and a half at max up 94 to Milwaukee to play the Brewers now. The Brewers are off the beaten path. They're not on I-95, of course. And the only people paying attention to them are people like me, Cub fans. Tony, Milwaukee looks loaded, and they have the best record in the National League now. What kind of chance do you give the Rockies to beat them?
So let's look at the Rockies' recent circumstance. On Sunday, they were in the Mountain Time Zone closing out their season against the Nats. On Monday, they were in the Pacific Time Zone, right? Playing the Dodgers. On Tuesday, they were in the Central Time Zone going 13 innings against the Cubs, a game that ended Wednesday. And now, tomorrow, they're in Milwaukee playing the early game. If you ask me what I think Major League Baseball does not want the Rockies to advance. That's what I think.
I think that's a complete just exaggeration. They're already in
all
the Central
factual.
Time Zone. They got a day off.
Factual.
They got on a bus last night, and they probably went to the Pfister Hotel, and they slept. It's an hour and a half drive. That's the traffic on the Beltway in Washington it takes you to get to the office. So
This
what are you talking
entire
about?
postseason in the National League was set up for the Cubs to win and to advance. And without the Cubs, without the big city Cubs, the big draw Cubs, I think baseball's hurt. I think they're upset.
They got the Dodgers.
I don't think they care about
They got the
Well, if they
Dodgers.
lose the Dodgers and
They
they,
got the
lose the
Bravos.
Yankees, if they lose those three
They got
teams,
the Red Sox.
it's not as big as those.
The
Not as
Red
big.
Sox aren't as big as anybody in Major League Baseball. Of course
Not the
they are.
Yankees, the Dodgers, or the Cubs. Close. They're
Stop
next.
it with this. Look, I just think the Brewers are a superior team.
Maybe.
I think Craig Counsell, Tony, when he has to go to his bullpen, which he does in the National League more often, and he has to make double switches and go lefty-righty percentage switches, he's got a ton of guys in that dugout he can go to.
I will just say
and a
that-
bullpen which is superior.
Arenado, Story, and Blackman. Okay, that is 104 homers and 288 RBIs.
They
So
hit it last
you're-
night.
if you beat them, you've beaten a very fine middle of the order.
Okay, all right.
Major League Baseball commissioned and endorsed a TV commercial for personal exuberance, a commercial that appealed to its players and fans to reject the old stuffy rules that so many play by. Let's watch.
They said rules are rules. Don't stop and stare.
Toss that bat 30 feet into the air.
Don't flip your bat. Respect the jersey. He didn't earn that right. They called him unprofessional. No celebrating. Keep your head down. Flashy, immature, showboat. They said it all. No more talk. Let the kids play.
Wilbon, do you expect these unwritten rules to now change?
No, not overnight. I thought the coolest part of the commercial was Ken Griffey Jr.
Of course you did.
Being in the
'Cause he's
back
old.
of it. I mean, I love Ken Griffey Jr.
I know.
And I think it was good to have a player of Ken Griffey Jr.'s elite Hall of Fame nature and sort of the way he played the game at his age endorse this. Do I think it's going to change overnight? No, Tony. And look, there's a real sensitive area that's tough to get into. We're going to have to get into if we're going to discuss this honestly. And that is the culture, largely Latin American culture of bat flipping. It is not to say that all bat flippers are Latin American players.
Many are.
Many are, and the point is, many of the people who rail against it are outside that culture. I don't expect it to change overnight.
So let's get to this. There is a racial and cultural underpinning to all of
Yep.
this.
It says be tolerant.
Because
That's what this
many
commercial
of the
says.
bat flippers have been Latin.
Mm-hmm.
And that created an enmity against them, born many times by American-born players.
Yep.
This is baseball saying the following. Hey, about 30% of our players are Latin. They come from a different culture than we do. We've got to make room for them.
Yes.
We've got to be more tolerant of them. Or as they say in Stripes, lighten up, Francis. This is a very important thing that is going on. I think these things can be changed. There is an unwritten rule that will never be changed. That is, if you throw at my player,
at your guy.
I'm throwing at your player because that's not Latin or black or white. That's
Tony,
baseball.
There's pushback. And when it's race is involved, even a little
it
bit,
is involved.
there's greater pushback. All I got to do is say the words school busing. In this country, there was a law that said this is what will happen now. And in those communities where kids were on buses where they still weren't welcome, the customs did not change overnight.
I think
That's all
I'm not
pointing
saying
out.
it's going to change overnight, but you have a commissioner in Rob Manfred who was on this program and said,
Yeah.
we need more
He's
personal
serious about this.
expression. We want to be more
I
like the NBA.
applaud
Right.
him
Yeah.
for
It's a big
taking up
deal.
this cause.
This is a big
Do
deal.
you think it's going to change quickly?
I don't know how you define quickly. I think it is inevitable it will change, and this will be accelerated by this commercial.
Hope
This
you're
is
right.
baseball putting its weight behind
I'm a
it.
little more skeptical than you are, but I hope
They
you're right.
shouldn't be.
And I hope Rob Manfred is right about it.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Wisconsin and talk about cheeseheads again. This time the Packers. In an unlikely disagreement, perhaps? Aaron Rodgers lit into the specifics of the Packers' offensive approach Sunday in a shutout victory of Buffalo. Rodgers said, quote, "We were championship defensive level, non-playoff team offensive level today. We need to find ways to get our playmakers in position to get some opportunities," close quote. Mike McCarthy conceded as much and said, quote, "When I closed my door last night and watched the game, I felt like we left a lot out there." Close quote. Tony, Rodgers versus McCarthy. Big deal, little deal, no deal.
It is a little deal if it's any deal because Aaron Rodgers has won. Because Mike McCarthy has said that you're right at this point. Look, you can go out in an hour and get somebody to coach that team. You can't go out and find another Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers this is not true about most. There's just a small group of football players who are more important than anybody else on a franchise. Aaron Rodgers is that guy. He is that guy. And by the way, he's right. In this particular case, 100%. He's right. And Mike McCarthy's been with him a long time and was very wise to say, you know what? Because Mike McCarthy's an offensive coordinator. That's how he started. He said, we didn't do what we're supposed to do. Little deal.
This reminds me of a phrase that you and I are very familiar with because of a boss we once worked for and the way he made his operation run. It's creative tension. Yeah. Okay? Not only
Benjamin
is
Brown
creative
and Jim
tension,
Bradley.
That's right. Not only is creative tension not bad, it's required for teams that actually go in, mix it up, exchange ideas, get better, and then win. Aaron Rodgers knows he needed to say it. He needed to say it publicly, and Mike McCarthy needed to listen. And now you've had that happen. I expect the Packers to be better off for this.
Aaron Rodgers is 34 now. He's got a contract that takes him till he's 39. He's the most valuable piece of property in the NFL. Mike McCarthy knows that one of the reasons he has coached there for now in his 13th year, much of that is Aaron Rodgers and his talent. So if they don't get along, you don't want Belichick.
But a little
Brady
tension
now.
is good. A little tension. This kind of tension is good. By the way, is Patrick Mahomes the heir apparent?
He looks great. We've said that. Yeah. The Washington Capitals, he's got that strange voice though. The Washington Capitals will raise their Stanley Cup banner tonight. There will be outdoor watch parties all over the city, Washington, D.C. We will have the game on at Chatter, thank you. After so many years of playoff disappointment, Alex Ovechkin was dominating in 4 straight series. Wilbon, only 2 teams in almost 30 years have repeated as champions, the Penguins and the Red Wings. Will the Caps make it 3?
There's some wild card things here at work, Tony. This new coach, Todd Reardon, who you and I wouldn't know if you walked in here wearing a Capitals sweater.
Don't know him.
Okay, so you have a new coach. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? New energy. You can't be stale when you have a new coach, right? I don't know. There's another thing. Alexander Ovechkin, deservedly so. He partied like a rock star all summer. You know who he also partied like? The Capitals partied as much as the greatest one-hit wonder to me in the modern history of sports in America, the 85 Bears. And what distinguishes the 85 Bears? They're the 85 Bears, not the 86, 7, 8, or 9 Bears.
That's right.
And Ovechkin was Mike Ditka. I mean, the cup and drink and party flowed.
Yeah.
How does that work?
It was. I've lived in Washington now, as you have, for almost 40 years. This was the most surprising and gratifying win that any team has had because it was so unexpected and it made people so happy and they shared in it. And I'm not going to go to the Cubs with 108 years, but this was a long time. The Capitals had never won.
40.
I think if they won 20 games this year, people would be okay.
No.
They're so happy that they won it all.
And Ovechkin
and Backstrom are 33 and 30, which is pretty old. And the thing you're mentioning, Barry Trotz just quit.
He just
what is that? He just quit.
And by the way,
so I don't know.
Tom Wilson, a very important,
suspended.
Maybe the third most important player on that team, is suspended for 20 games for that cheap shot he delivered. Maybe fourth.
Let's take a break. Coming up, are the A's making the right decision to start tonight's game with relievers? We will ask a man who'll be in the booth, Ron Darling.
We'll also ask him if Chris Sale's drop in velocity is really due to mechanics instead of injury.
When do you remember a championship coach just simply quitting? I'm done.
There's got to be something.
I'm going somewhere else.
Pardon the Interruption is brought to you by Domino's. Order online and...
We're just a couple of hours away from the American League wild card game between the A's and the Yankees, and we are pleased to welcome in a man who'll be in the booth for that game for TBS, our friend, Mr. Ron Darling. Let's start this by saying it's a bullpen game for the A's, obviously. You were a starting pitcher. I don't know how you feel about these kinds of games. Do you like this decision? And is this the future of baseball, the immediate future of baseball?
Well, if I were a player and I still was a starting pitcher, I would bull my neck and be team first. I would quietly then go home and cry my eyes out for a half hour. But as far as an announcer is concerned, I think the Oakland A's are doing exactly what they should be doing. If you look at the game backwards, you have Blake Trinan who can go 2, Jay Reese-Familia, who can go 2, Fernando Rodney, all veterans who can go an inning. That brings you to 5. So the bullpenning is going to have to somehow see if they can get through 4 innings. That's not a lot to ask. The thing I find hard to ask, though, is you're going to have so many pitchers in the game, someone's going to flub it up, wouldn't you think? You don't think everyone's going to be perfect.
Well, let's go to a guy who actually knows something about starting pitching, Luis Severino, who's going to start for the Yankees. Do you think last year's terrible, brief start is still in his head? Ron, you've been in this position. How quickly can you forget it? Do you think he has?
Well, I think he's forgotten it because if you remember, after that wild card game, he pitched pretty well in the post against Cleveland and against the Houston Astros twice. So I think he's forgotten that. But I think more importantly, what Severino brings is he brings stuff. Talent. And I think sometimes you'd like to have maybe more experience, but talent plays at this time of year. And the other thing that I don't think a lot of people have given a lot of thought to is that with Severino, as opposed to Tanaka and Happ, you know right away if he's good or he's not good. And that'll make it an easier decision for Boone. Think about Happ and Tanaka, veteran professional pitchers that even if they start out a little slow, they usually give you a 6 or maybe even a 7-inning good effort, 2-3 runs. With Severino, you will know within the first, 15 or 20 pitches if he's going to be good tonight. And if he is good in that first thing, strikes out a couple, they're hoping he has the kind of start he did in Boston. On September 20th, he went 7 innings, struck out 10, only gave up a run. That was a better indication how he can pitch.
Well, of course, the winner of this game gets the Red Sox. And I think we got to start with Chris Sale and the lack of velocity in his last regular season start, Ron. They said it was mechanics, not injury. When you look at that, does that sound right to you? When you look at that, does that sound right to you?
I find it hard to believe that, guys. I know that they're saying all the right things, and I understand what they're saying, whether it comes from Chris or it comes from Alex Cora or the Boston organization. But when you look at it from afar, a young man who's been on the disabled list a couple of times, when he should be ratcheting up his innings, velocity, stuff in September to get ready for the most important games, it was going backwards. So I'm not saying that he won't be able to pull it together. He's one of the great pitchers of his generation, but I do have, a wary eye about it.
We will get you out of here on this. We'll go to the National League with the Braves and the Dodgers. They start tomorrow. Clayton Kershaw not starting Game 1 in order to get to full rest. Will that have an impact on the series in your mind?
Well, I don't know if it'll have an impact on the series. I think Ryu's pitched pretty well. It just does seem alarming when your best pitcher doesn't start Game 1. But I can understand it in this way, is that if he pitches Game 2, that means he's your Game 5 starter if it goes that deep. If it doesn't go that deep, then he's your Game 1 starter for the NLCS. So in that way, it makes a lot of sense to go Ryu first. So we'll see what happens, but I think it's going to be more of a battle than most people think.
This is a very good treat for us. Thank you, Ron, for being on. Thank you.
Guys, you're the best. Take care. See you later.
Tonight's wild card game starts at 8 p.m. on TBS. Let's take one last break, but still to come. You won't believe the team that Des Bryant is now interested in.
Are you still listening to Des Bryant? That's a futile exercise. And are the Warriors going to win another championship? We'll tell you what NBA general managers predict.
How could they possibly not predict that they would win? They've won 3 out of 4.
Maybe they could think Boston will
They have the same cast. No.
With Grand Marnier.
Happy time, people. Happy 37th birthday, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I am sure he's surprised it has not already been declared a national holiday, or at least a reason for kids to stay out of school in California. Zlatan is our favorite MLS player. I can't say that I'm a soccer fan, but I am a Zlatan fan. And he is welcome on the show whenever he wants to be on, and he can feel free to talk about the basket.
I must say, I'm excited about going to a game at Staples, featuring, of course, LeBron James and Lakers. But I want to know if he's there, because he said he would be there to help LeBron with the basket.
Happy anniversary, Ricky Williams. On this day 20 years ago, Williams rushed for a Texas record 350 yards. His college career ended with a Heisman Trophy. He was the number 5 overall pick in the draft, and he had a good but disjointed NFL career. Now he is selling products that are cannabis-based and seeking a degree in Chinese medicine.
Wasn't it Mike Ditka who traded the entire draft and said, that's it, we're done?
Yes.
Went out to play golf in the afternoon?
How he trails Buck Showalter after 9 years with the Baltimore Orioles, including 3 playoff teams and this year's disastrous 115 losses. Buck Showalter will not be back next year. Showalter's been a good manager with the Yankees, the Diamondbacks, the Rangers, the Orioles, but at 62 and old school, you wonder if he'll get another chance.
The way he looked when he was jogging out there, it reminded me of Earl Weaver.
That's high praise there. Let's go to the big finish and let's go quickly.
Let's do it.
The NFL suspended Michael Kendricks indefinitely for his insider trader conviction. Your thoughts?
Whenever we talk about insider trading on this show, conviction seems the word that comes next. Seems to be. Brooks Koepka says a reported dust-up between him and Dustin Johnson never happened. You believe him, don't you?
Not completely, and by not completely, I mean no. The annual NBA GM survey is out. 87% have the Warriors winning the title. Do you agree?
Yeah, I don't see any dark horse candidate, Tony. What, Celtics number 2? I don't know. Houston? 30% of those same GMs have LeBron winning the MVP. You like his chances?
He's the best player, but I'll give you an outside person.
Who?
Kyrie Irving, if the Celtics are great. Last one, Des Bryant posted on Twitter that he'd prefer to play for the Dallas Cowboys. Is that going to happen?
If he's going to concerts with Jerry Jones, why don't they have this already? And the Cowboys could use him.
We're out of time. We'll try and do better the next time. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
Ask Dak Prescott if he wants him back. I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. You can get the PTI podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcast.